Welcome to the Pastor Show. We're so glad that you chose to join us today. It's July the 22nd, Wednesday, and we are glad you are here. Pastor, we're glad you're here as well. We couldn't do this without you.
Well, I've been looking forward to this. I've really enjoyed doing this the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks, and hope we can continue on. Things around the church this week, just a pretty normal week, but things are busy. Everybody's working hard. We're getting set for Sunday. It's going to be a great day of worship. I've got a couple of big things going on in my family in the next couple of weeks. I'd love to just share. I'm really excited. Next week on Thursday is my 25th wedding anniversary, and so we're looking forward to that. If we can make it 8 more days. That's what I told my wife last night. Just a few more days, Donna, just a few more days. And so we figure at this point it'd be hard to mess it up. So if we get to next Thursday, 25 years, we're going to go away for a couple of days. We'll be back for the weekend and back for Sunday. But we're excited about that. And then the next week, maybe even more excited, don't tell my wife, but all of my kids are going to be here at the same time. Now, this may not seem like a big deal to some people, but some of you will understand. My youngest daughter, of course, she's still in high school. She's with us all the time, and we're thankful for that. My middle daughter has been on a mission trip for about a month. She's coming in a week and a half, so she'll be here that week. And then my oldest daughter, she's taken a week off with her ministry job there in Columbia, South Carolina. And she's coming in for a week and bringing a friend with her. So we're excited about that. We'll have everybody together. We probably will have everybody together at Christmas, but there's really no guarantee. I can see a way that we might have somebody traveling then. Mm-hmm. So this may be the last time for a year. So I can't wait. I'm looking forward to having everybody sitting around the table and under the same roof for a little while. So a couple of big weeks. Now, I know that you've had a big week, maybe not a lot of excitement, but you had this voluntary precautionary quarantine. I don't know if that's what you call it, but tell us what's been going on with you and Meredith.
Yeah, we call it a test of patience. That's what we call it. We took the COVID test last Monday, and it took 8 days for us to get the results back. There's several people that can get it back a lot sooner. We went to what we thought was the fastest place. They said that it takes about 24 hours to get the results back, and they said, just kidding, every day until we got it on the 8th day. But we learned a lot through that process. We're actually going to talk about it in our Sunday school lesson on August the 2nd, so stay tuned for that. God did teach us a lot. We were sick. We did have a virus. It was just a stomach one and not the COVID one. So we got over that quickly. Thankful for that. God has been really good, really through the process. But isn't it interesting that everything has to be filtered now through COVID, whether we have it or not? It just permeates everything, our news, all that kind of stuff. Have you noticed that as well, Pastor?
You know, I have, and I'm very thankful that you and Meredith both tested negative.
Yeah,
we do have a number of people in the church who are COVID positive right now. So far as I know, none of them are extremely sick. None of them are in critical condition. But we should be praying for everybody in our church that's suffering directly from this pandemic, and those in our community as well. It's hard to know what will happen next. It seems like every week is a surprise. So it's been a difficult time for a lot of people. But I want to point out something sort of on the lighter side that I saw yesterday. I'm a big football fan, college football fan, and I'm really concerned that there's not going to be football this fall, which I know in the grand scheme of things is not super important, but it's important to me. I'm looking forward to football. And so I was just surfing and reading some news, trying to figure out what everybody's saying. And I came across an article about professional soccer in Europe. Now, I'm not a soccer fan. I don't know anything about European soccer. But apparently, they are going ahead right now with their professional soccer season. One of the things, though, that they're doing is they're not allowing any spectators in the stands. So I found a picture, and I'll show it here on the screen. I found a picture of some very resourceful fans that rented cranes and they went up in these cranes, like 10 or 20 cranes surrounding the stadium. They go up in these cranes so that they can watch the game. And listen, that's a true fan. And I thought when I saw that, surely there's somebody in our church that has a crane I can borrow for football season. So if you do, give me a call, give me a driving lesson. I've never driven one before, but we'll figure it out. I'll do anything to see a football game this year. And this is an interesting time, and we've got to look, I think, as hard as we can for something to laugh at in the midst of what otherwise is a pretty serious situation.
Yeah, that's true. And all I can think about when I looked at that picture, Noel, is just, what about bathroom breaks? I mean, how mad would you be if someone always has to use the bathroom because you get to lose the view just to make that happen?
Well, I tell you, you'd have to be very selective in who you allowed in your crane.
That's right.
We'll just leave it at that.
That's
but
right.
I can think of some people who are invited and some who are definitely not. So
yeah. Well, hey, every week, Pastor, you've been sharing with us just a little bit, a devotional about what God has been teaching you that week, and we sure would love to hear your insights this week as well.
Yeah, so I enjoy doing this. I look forward to doing this. I just want to share every week that's not really involved, but something from my reading in the past week. And I think last week I mentioned a name, Thomas Manton, 17th century English Puritan. Not somebody that people have heard of. He's not really famous or noted in history, but he left behind just volume after volume of sermon manuscripts. And these are some of the best sermons you could ever read. They're written in English, so we can all read them. They're easy to read. Even though they were written hundreds of years ago, the language is pretty easy to read through. Some things that were written in that day are not easy to read. But he's written these sermons, and I'm trying to read several every week, and they're just amazing. I pray that God would allow me to be able to explain Scripture as well as Thomas Manton explained Scripture to his church and in his day. But one of the things that he did, is he took Psalm 119. Now, if you know that psalm, that may ring a bell. That is the longest psalm. In fact, it's the longest chapter in the Bible. I think 175 verses or something like that. It's very long. So Thomas Manton preached a sermon series on Psalm 119. Mark, it was 189 sermons long. Can you imagine?
Wow.
And these aren't short sermons. These are hour-long, very intricate, very involved sermons. He never repeats himself. 189 sermons. So I've been
there are
reading,
only 176 verses in that song?
Yes, so some verses get more than one sermon. Some sermons will cover 2 or 3 verses, and then some verses will get 2 or 3 sermons. And I mean, this is more than you want to know, but that was 189 sermons in a row from verse 1 to verse last. But he preached several other sermons also on Psalm 119. They just weren't a part of the series, and they are unique sermons as well. It's an incredible coverage of one chapter. So I was reading some this week, and I came across a verse and a sermon that I think just speaks to the time that we're in. So let me read this. Psalm 119, verse 71. The scripture says, "It was good for me to be afflicted so that I could learn your statutes." That's one of those hard verses to read. It's good to have problems. It's good to have a crisis, to be afflicted. The psalmist said, it is good because in the midst of the crisis, I can learn the principles, the statutes, the love, the trustworthiness of God. So when Manton is explaining this verse, in fact, he has a 34-point sermon on this verse. In the middle of the sermon, he's talking about how it is sometimes difficult to see the good when you're in the middle of a crisis. So let me read to you one of his lines. He said, "We must distinguish between a part of God's work and the end of God's work." So sometimes we're in the middle of something and we don't see God's hand. We don't see some way that God is moving toward a purpose. We don't see the provision of God, and it can be frustrating. But Manton points out, and we see this in Scripture, that we need to remember that there's a difference between being in the middle of something and being at the end of something. And we just need to wait to the end. Sometimes in the middle of a crisis, we don't see God's purpose, we don't see God's hand, but if we'll just be patient, in the end we will. And that reminds me of a verse in the New Testament, John 13:7. Listen to what Jesus said. What I am doing, you don't realize now, but afterward you will understand. People, even the disciples, didn't really understand Jesus' ministry, and they didn't understand a lot that was going on. And he said, that's okay. Once we get to the end, once there's the crucifixion, the burial, the resurrection, then you'll understand. So Mark, I've thought about this crisis that we're in, this pandemic, and we don't know what's going to happen next. And we're hopeful that next week it's going to be better, and next week it's going to be better, and it doesn't seem to be the case. I'm getting a lot of questions. I'm sure you are too. Where's the Lord in this, and what can we know? Well, I think the best answer to that is we just need to be patient. It's hard to see God's hand right now in the middle of this, but when it's all over, we're going to see that God had a purpose. We're going to see God glorified in this pandemic, in this difficult time. We just have to be patient. Don't be discouraged. God's still on His throne. And Mark, that encouraged me as I read that sermon this week, and I hope that'll encourage some others as they think about the same things.
Yeah, it reminds me of an old Babby Mason song, that God is too wise to be mistaken. God is too good to be unkind. So when we don't understand, when we can't see His plan, when we can't trace His hand, we trust His heart. And that's really, when we're in the middle of it, we just can't see. We just got to trust the Lord. Be patient with Him. He's working. We don't know it.
Yeah, you're right.
Hey, you had a lunch yesterday that was pretty interesting. Not the food, even though that was probably good too, but what happened there?
Yeah, so I was invited to a lunch with our local police chief, Jim Sebi, and I was there with some other pastors, Rod Jones from NAC Bible, Brent Bullard from Grace Bible, good friend, Kendall McDonald from Fredonia Hill, all just great pastors, great men of God. And I had the privilege of being with them and being with the chief. He and his wife, the chief and his wife, prepared a lunch for us, and it was, they just pulled out all of the stops. It was a really a nice time. And I learned a lot. I had an opportunity to ask some questions, some things I was curious about, and just listen to the chief talk and hear his heart. And so what I want to say to those that are watching this is that we need to pray for our law enforcement officers, both those in the police department and those in the sheriff's department and all the different law enforcement agencies. One of the things that the chief pointed out is that over the last, I think he said 10 years, I may have these numbers wrong, but over the last 10 years or 20 years, every category of violent crime in America and in Texas and locally has gone down. Every category of violent crime has gone down except for one, and that is assault on police officers. And he just talked about some of the difficulty that our local officers face. Did you know, I was surprised at this, that for every officer that is killed in the line of duty, and we certainly should be concerned about that, the violent crime against officers is on the rise, but for every officer who is killed in the line of duty, 5 officers commit suicide. It is such a difficult job. So I hope everybody will pray. I am. I left the meeting. We were together for 2 or 3 hours, but I left the meeting with a new commitment to pray for our local officers. I was really impressed with the efforts that the chief and the other officers are taking to do good community policing. I learned a little bit about how the drug trafficking works here in our city. That was very interesting. I learned about how some of the recent protests have been largely fueled by people driving up from Houston. And we talked about that and why that is and what really was the cause of that. I plan, Mark, though my wife has registered a veto. We still have to discuss this, but I plan over the next couple of months to go on some ride-alongs on Friday evenings with some of our local police, and just to see them in action, see the things that they do. And so, but it was a good meeting, and the reason I wanted to mention it is I just so appreciative of him, his heart. He has a love for the Lord. He talked about that, and I'm glad he is our police chief, and I'm thankful for the things that he and his officers are doing.
Yeah, and a couple of weeks ago, to change the subject, I guess, a little bit, we made an announcement about our service changes, right? And that we were going to go to a 9 o'clock Sunday school time and then a 10:15 worship time, and we were going to do both of our services at the same time. And so that was kind of a new announcement, and just I'm sure it caused a lot of people to have some questions, and I just wanted to throw a couple of questions at you.
Sure.
And let you answer some of those. So what's kind of the biggest motivation for doing this?
Well, that's a good question. Why would we make such a big change? We've had this same schedule, 9 o'clock worship, Sunday school, 11:15 worship. We've had this for years, for over a decade, I believe. So why would we make the change? There are really several reasons. One is we want to give Sunday school more time. We need more transition time. I could run down a whole laundry list of reasons, but the primary reason, Mark, is the fact that we are packed out now. Pre-COVID, I know, but we're packed out in our 9 o'clock service. There's no room to grow, and we want to grow. We believe we can grow and reach more people in the 9 o'clock service. And then the 11:15 service just seems too late for people to really get engaged there. We've had difficulty growing that service. So we've got one service we can't grow because of capacity issues, and then one service we can't grow because of time issues. And so we think this will solve both of those problems. Make it easier for people to attend the contemporary service at the same time that they may have friends or family attending the celebration service, and it'll all be here on campus at the same time. So that's our primary motivation.
Yeah, well, so why now? I mean, in the midst of COVID, why now?
Well, again, a good question. This is something that we had been talking about as a staff, well, ever since I've been here, and I think even before. And we've been talking about what is the best time, what is the best time, what is the best time. And there's never a perfect time to make a change this big. It's always difficult. Change is always difficult for all of us, for me, for everybody. But COVID has presented some unique opportunities. Our attendance, of course, like every other church, is way down. The attendance of those who are doing on-campus worship. And that makes it a little easier to make some of these changes. People just seem to be a little bit more flexible during this COVID time. So we have an opportunity to experiment with this. Now, we're committed to it. It's not something we're just going to take a stab at. But I think this is a unique time, and it gives us an opportunity to do this. And then specifically, why right now? We have students, hopefully SFA students, coming back the middle of August, and we want to make sure that we can put our best foot forward as those students come back, and we can have the ministry, have the schedule that'll be best for them, and not let them come back and us have one schedule when they get here for the first few weeks and then transition to another schedule. Now, some people have asked, is this set in stone? Could the timetable change? And Mark, these days nothing is set in stone, right? Never say never. No. We don't know. Yeah. None of us know what this COVID situation may be like even a week from now. So no, it's not set in stone. But we have to eventually quit deciding on a date and just start working toward a date.
I'm just doing
And
it.
so
That's right.
we're working toward this date as if it were set in stone. If the Lord changes our plans, He will change them, and He can, and He may.
That's
But
right.
as far as I'm concerned, the date is the date, and we're doing it, and we will be ready, and we're excited, and it's full steam ahead.
So what's it going to be like as we're watching this, the preaching that's on a screen? You
Yeah.
know,
So a lot of people have asked. I think that's been the biggest question that I've heard. So those in the contemporary service. So we're going into our Christian Life Center, and we're taking our gym, and it'll still be a gym, but we're really creating a worship space in there with new chairs, new platform, light, sound, video, the whole works. Those people, those that are in that service, will have live worship. There will be the praise band and the praise team and all of that. But when it comes to the sermon, they will be watching the sermon live, but it'll be on video. I don't guess that's live, but you know what I mean. They will be watching the sermon in real time, but the sermon, I'll be preaching the
right.
sermon from the sanctuary. So what will that be like, watching from the screen? I really believe it's. I think the people that are concerned about it are going to be surprised. I had an opportunity a few weeks ago, and I may have mentioned this in an earlier pastor's show, but I had an opportunity a few weeks ago to go to the largest church in Tyler, and I went to their video service. There were probably 1,500 people there. It was packed out even in the middle of COVID, and it was live worship, and then the sermon was on video because the pastor was preaching to a different group of people in person. After 2 or 3 minutes, Mark, I really forgot that it was on video, and it was just a really good experience. And I looked around, and I think everybody had the same experience. But something that may surprise people, but I think it will help people, embrace this and give it a fair chance. A lot of churches are doing this. Some churches in our area are doing this, even as their primary worship point. I already mentioned the largest church in Tyler they're doing this, as well as some other churches there. If you just look across the landscape of churches in America, the fastest growing churches, this is what churches are doing. And the pastor will preach to one group of people in one room, and then there are many other people in many other rooms, sometimes on other campuses, sometimes in the same campus, and they're live worship, video sermon. So we're not the first people to do this. We know it can be done successfully, and we're optimistic that it's going to be a good experience for our church as well.
Change is hard, Noel, but I can't help but think, look at how God is making it a little bit easier
Absolutely.
for us. Last summer we were in the gym because of the renovation. And so we kind of have an idea of what that looks like. All of us have experienced that, right? And then because of COVID, we've all experienced what worship is like online, and we've seen the sermon and how just incredible that's been during this process. And so I think, thank you, Lord, for the baby steps. I think we may have needed some baby steps, right. And He's given it to us, so that's a huge blessing. Well, what about Austin? I know things are going on in his life. Where are we with all of that on Austin? Right?
Yeah, so Austin, for those who don't know, Austin is one of our ministers here, full-time worship minister. He's an associate for Andre in the worship ministry, and he's been with us a couple of years now. Is that right, Mark? Would you say 2 years?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 2.5. 2.5 years.
So he has been leading the contemporary service, the 11:15 service. He helps out with a lot of music ministry and a lot of college ministry as well, and youth ministry. I mean, he's got hands in everything. But he's been primarily leading our contemporary service. Leads the band and the praise team. Just done an excellent job. But there have been some changes in Austin's life. We had an intern, a college intern, when Austin arrived, Sarah English. and one of our, just one of our champions in our college ministry. Lord really has worked through Sarah her entire time as one of our college ministry interns. But Austin and Sarah, they got to know each other, and they became friends, and they began to date, and now they're married. So we celebrate that. It's just a neat story, and neat that our church can be a part of it. But they were married here just a few weeks ago, in fact. Sarah is now going to medical school. She's going to a medical school in Fort Worth, and so that's brought some changes. Austin and Sarah have moved to Fort Worth. Austin has decided to pursue further education at Southwestern Baptist Theological Seminary. They're living on campus there as he goes to seminary and she goes to medical school. In fact, Austin has a really unique special opportunity. He is going to be, or is, right, the seminary campus worship leader. So I think that's a pretty big deal. That's a great honor. But he's still with us. So he's with us in a part-time capacity. He's with us all day on Sunday and all day on Monday. So 2 long days. He comes in from Fort Worth and he helps us out. He will be leading this service at our Family Life Center, our Christian Life Center. And he's going to be with us for a while. We're going to step through this and see what fits him, what fits the needs that we have here. But I'm thankful we've got him. I'm thankful he's the one who's sort of shepherding this new service as it's getting started. So Austin is here for a while, and we hope a long while. But Austin's here and he's committed. So we're certainly glad of that.
Well, I know there's been a lot of people been asking questions, so I think that's good that we've got that information out for them as well. Well, kind of remind us again of when this all begins. What's happening?
August 16th, that is one Sunday before the majority of the college students are scheduled to come in. Now, that college schedule may change. Hopefully, our schedule will not. We have 9 o'clock Sunday school. 9 o'clock Sunday school. Sunday school will begin at 9 o'clock. And then 10:15 worship. And worship will be out by 11:15, 11:30. Now I should say something about Sunday school, and you may have some more comments about this. That may not start on August the 16th. There's a question about that, about children's ministry, what that'll look like that day. We don't have the answers for that. We wish we did, but there are just too many unknowns. We will have those answers soon. People are working hard on that. But that's the schedule. Sunday school at 9, worship at 10:15, and we will do the worship at 10:15 even if there is not Sunday school at 9, although we hope there is in some capacity. Although that might happen the next week or the next week, we'll have to see. You're sort of heading that up, Mark. Any comments about that?
Yeah, there's just a lot of discussion that we're having to have as far as what we actually can do as far as social distancing, with our Sunday school classes, and kind of anticipating how many people are actually going to be coming back. That's a lot of unknowns, and depending on the number that comes back will depend on how we can do things, and so so if you are a volunteer, we want to hear from you, to make sure that you're wanting to come back and do that. Also, maybe you have not been a volunteer before, but are willing. You're one of the people that have been coming back already to our in-person worship service. Hey, if you need some help, we need to know that too. And so please call the church and let us know. We're trying to compile our volunteers, and we're maybe having to do some reshuffling a little bit of that. So there are there's a lot of balls flying in the air that we're having to juggle. So so we may make the 16th. We may need to delay a week or two, but I promise you will not be surprised. You will know. A week in advance, 2 weeks in advance, as we start moving forward and do that. So don't be surprised. Don't worry. You're not.
Well, that's a good word, and I think that's a good encouragement. If somebody is willing and able to help us out, whether it's to help in the cleaning, the special cleaning we're doing for the services. Maybe you'd be willing to help in the children's ministry, children's church. Maybe even that's something that you've not done before, but if there's a spot you might be interested in helping, youth ministry, anything, reach out, let us know. We will let the right minister know who's handling that, and they'll process through that through their system and see if we can find a place for you to serve. Now, Mark, I know we have a big children's ministry event this week. Why don't you just run down the details of that?
Yeah, so of course, Melanie made a big announcement a couple weeks ago about Vacation Bible School, and that we weren't going to have Vacation Bible School in the normal sense this year. But we did have an opportunity for our families to participate in an outreach opportunity for those that have come to our Vacation Bible School last year that were visiting and were our guests here on campus. And so we are going to be doing something for them. And so it begins this Sunday. And there's a drive-through on Sunday where you go by and pick up all your materials. That's your T-shirts and your devotionals and the activities that you're going to be doing. And then on Monday, next Monday, the children's building has been transformed into these workstations, and we'll be packing these packets that we'll be delivering to all of our guests that came to Vacation Bible School last year. And so how awesome is that? They'll do that on Monday and Tuesday and do deliveries on Monday and Tuesday. And then on Wednesday, they'll be packing as well on campus. But it will be packing for Operation Christmas Child. And so they'll be doing 200 boxes for Operation Christmas Child, and that's going to be pretty amazing. I just talked with Melanie yesterday, and she was assuring me that we have accommodations for all levels. So, you can do the work from your home. You can come to the church and be incredibly social distanced, and you can even deliver and have a no contact delivery. And so we are taking into account all of those issues. And so if you haven't registered, families, you want to do that right away. Go ahead and register. It's going to be a great event and a fun event to do as a family. In fact, the T-shirts talk about, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. And that's really Melanie's theme for the rest of the year, as we just look to do children's ministry a little bit differently, but how important it is for us as families to serve the Lord together. So super excited about that. I just also wanted to say, hey, if you're not in children's ministry, but you want to be a part, call the church next week and say, hey, I'd love to help deliver if you need me. We may not need you, but if they do need you on Tuesday, Barbara would call you Tuesday morning and say, hey, can you come and help deliver? Deliveries from 4 to 6:30 on Mondays and Tuesdays. So if you would like to be a part of it or just to be praying for this event, you can do that as well. That's a great way to be a part of this really incredible time that's coming up next week.
Absolutely.
I know that we've had some people give us some suggestions for show names. And so as we're wrapping up, I guess we should look at a couple of those suggestions as we go through it. It's hard to get both of us to agree on something, I know, when it comes to this name. But one person said pastor to pastor as an idea. Someone mentioned midweek pastor's update. One lady gave us about 10 suggestions. They were all good. I'm going to just highlight 2 of them because I thought they were really, really good. The Reverend's Rundown, I just felt like, we could do some kind of wrapping to that. And a Dear Visit. I thought, I like that
Well,
one.
I noticed the one you left off her list, the Pulpiteer and the Puppeteer.
What?
So that gets my vote. I think that would be much better than the Dear Visit. So...
No. Let's move on. The last one I had was Staff Infection, but I think that's a music group of all the staff, and it doesn't come out to play very often. I don't think we sound that good, so we might need to keep that
a music
in the
group
wraps.
and a deadly infection, maybe.
Maybe not the right time.
Well, we'll keep working on that.
We have so enjoyed.
We'll just call it the Pastor's Show for now, but we'll see. We'll see what it turns into.
Yeah, We certainly have enjoyed our time together with you. I look forward to next week. As you go about the week, I just want to remind you to continue to pray. Pray for our church. Pray for our leaders. Pray for those that are lost and don't know Christ. May the Lord open up opportunity for you to share this week the good news. And we'll see you next week.